Hey guys, today we slip into the embroidered sandals of someone who probably didn't think of themselves as a genius but absolutely was. You're about to become a Mayan mathematician, living in a world where numbers were sacred, time was circular, and your calendar had more layers than a modern tax form. Expect some moonlight rituals, uncomfortable stone seating, and a lot of beans. You'll be calculating planetary alignments using a base 20 system while dodging jaguars and decoding dreams. And no, you probably won't survive this. Mathematicians didn't always get the best dental care. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. Feel free to drop your location and the local time in the comments. Now, relax, maybe put on some soft music, and let's get started on today's journey together. It's still dark when you open your eyes. Not because of laziness, there's no snooze button on a woven straw mat, but because the stars haven't finished speaking yet. You stretch your arms, wincing at the crick in your back from last night's dreaming posture. Your hut is modest, walls of wattle and daub, roof thatched and fraying in corners the spiders favor. But today is not a day for sweeping cobwebs. Today, you're on celestial duty. You shuffle to your fire pit, where embers from last night still pulse faintly. With practiced ease, you blow them back to life, feed them dry twigs, and boil a handful of cacao. That's the sacred stimulant bean that vaguely tastes like burnt herbs and mild dread. It isn't chocolate, not yet anyway. But it does the job. Your mind awakens. The stars are waiting. Outside, the village is mostly silent. A few distant coughs. A pig snuffling somewhere. You step into the damp grass and look skyward. There it is, Jupiter, bright and lounging just above the tree line. You squint, make a quick etching in your bark notebook. Venus too, a little lower. The movements of these celestial bodies are not just decorative to you. They are deeply practical. The calendar you help maintain controls the timing of agriculture, rituals, and sometimes even royal temper tantrums. By the time the eastern horizon turns opalescent pink, you've already mapped out several constellations and made 3 predictions, one of which involves a very minor lunar eclipse that no one else will care about. But you do. Because in your world, the sky is a clock, a scroll, and a divine crossword puzzle rolled into one. You step back inside and dress. A tunic embroidered with geometric glyphs. Today's choice says serpent wisdom, which hopefully makes you look more insightful than sleepy. You smear your cheeks lightly with red pigment, mostly out of habit. Red is intellect. Or blood. Depends on context. Breakfast is humble mashed avocado with chili, flat maize cakes, and a few leftover beans you probably shouldn't be eating cold. You pack a tiny carved figure of Itzamna, god of writing and knowledge, into your cloth pouch. Not because you're superstitious, but because he gives you better test results when he's with you. You also grab your counting stones, a few pre-written bark pages, and your favorite stylus, a slim reed hardened in fire. As you head out, the sun has just breached the hills. You pass neighbors setting up their wares, hear the thump of grinding stones as women prepare the day's tortillas, and nod politely to a priest sharpening a ceremonial obsidian blade. He nods back. You hope it's a friendly nod. One old man, sitting by a squash cart, gives you a crooked grin and mutters something about the stars being restless last night. You respond with a vague "they often are" and keep walking. The last time you humored him, he went on for an hour about a dream where a howler monkey offered him a job in coastal trade. The town's central plaza is already warming. You take the long way around the sweat lodge still smoldering from the morning cleanse and make your way to the observatory. You love this building. It's round, which feels mathematically correct, and even though the stairs are uneven, there's something comforting about how the place smells like stone and smarts. Inside, the senior astronomer is already at work, tapping a charcoal line on the wall chart. She grunts in your direction. A compliment. You both compare notes briefly. Her eyes narrow when you mention that minor eclipse. You sure it's not just a cloud? She asks. You smirk. I'm sure. You're handed a new assignment: prepare a short presentation for tomorrow's ceremony honoring the maize goddess. You'll need to calculate the most auspicious time for planting based on this week's planetary alignments. You resist the urge to groan. The last time you did this, the rains came 3 weeks late and you were blamed for angering a frog spirit. You still maintain it was an El Nino pattern. Back in the corridor, you pass a few apprentice scribes, all clutching their glyph tablets like they're afraid the words might run away. One of them whispers, "Ask him about the turtle thing." You keep walking. The turtle thing can wait. You head toward the market now. It's time to audit the tribute records. You've been summoned by a regional overseer who's been suspiciously vague about some missing cacao bags. You sigh. Numbers don't lie, but people certainly do. Especially when chocolate is involved. The sun is fully awake now, lounging smugly above the treetops as you descend the uneven path toward the market square. A trio of parrots screeches overhead like gossipy grandmothers, and somewhere in the underbrush, a rustle that could be a lizard or something with more teeth reminds you to keep an eye on the shadows. Being a Mayan mathematician may sound like a quiet life, but the jungle has a way of keeping everyone humble. You arrive at the tribute station, a shaded stone bench under a sloping thatched roof where the regional overseer waits, fanning himself with a folded palm frond and sweating in that deeply suspicious way that only people hiding miscounted cacao can sweat. "Ah, the numbers man," he says with a grin that doesn't reach his eyes. "You're early." "You're late," you reply, just to keep things balanced. You take out your bark notebook, open to the page labeled Week 12, Cycle of Cain. He hands over his figures: 3 sacks of cacao, 5 bundles of cotton, 2 feather capes, and a goat that is either a goat or a very unlucky dog. You frown. The math doesn't add up. "I thought this town owed us 6 sacks of cacao," you ask casually. He chuckles. "Must have been a miscommunication." You run your fingers over the counting stones. It's a neat little system, using dots and bars for numbers in base 20. It's elegant, clear, and just frustrating enough that only people like you are truly fluent in it. You make a note, mark a discrepancy glyph next to the cacao entry, and suggest he check again with his delivery boys. Preferably before tomorrow. He nods too quickly. As you leave the station, the market is in full swing. It's a chaotic symphony of color and smell. Women in embroidered tunics bargain over gourds. A boy is trying to trade a live iguana for a clay flute. Somewhere, someone is loudly insisting that their chili paste is blessed by the rain god himself. You pause to watch an old woman perform a minor ritual over a pile of maize, placing 3 kernels in each direction, murmuring blessings under her breath. To her, this is protection. To you, it's also an interesting form of mathematical grouping. Sets of 3 recur a lot in Mayan cosmology. You wonder idly if that pattern has some astronomical basis or if people just really like the number 3. You're about to move on when you hear the unmistakable sound of trouble, a low growl, followed by frantic shouting. A jaguar has wandered in from the outskirts, probably young and confused, or maybe just lured by the smell of roast iguana. Either way, you freeze. It lopes into the edge of the square, muscles rippling, golden eyes scanning. People scatter, some diving under carts, others climbing onto rooftops. The jaguar sniffs at a fruit stand, swats a gourd for no reason whatsoever, and locks eyes with you. For a moment, it's just the two of you. Mathematician versus jungle royalty. You do the only logical thing, you hold very, very still. Then, as quickly as it came, it loses interest. A vendor throws a fish in another direction, and the jaguar bounds away, tail flicking like an insult. You exhale. Your pulse is a drum beat. Maybe later you'll write a glyph about this. Man who was almost lunch during May's audit. You head to your next stop, a smaller plaza where the local tribute is recorded in chalk glyphs on a wall. You're here to double-check the day count intervals. Some junior scribe forgot to carry a cartoon and it threw the entire sequence off by 7,200 days. A common error, but one that tends to offend the time gods if not corrected. Also, it makes planting very awkward. You run your hand over the symbols, each one carved deeply into the plaster. The calendar you work with isn't just a clock, it's a philosophy. Time doesn't run forward like a line. It loops, turns, dances. The past echoes forward, and the future has already been dreamed. One of the boys assigned to scribing leans over. Is it true we're entering the ton of the screaming serpent soon? You raise an eyebrow. Only if your cousin keeps forgetting his base values. He flushes and quickly rubs out the offending glyph with a handful of sand. By midday, you're sticky with sweat and just a little proud of how many tax lies you've unraveled. You've corrected a cloth tally, adjusted a temple's eclipse marker, and survived a large carnivore. That deserves lunch. You head to the shaded edge of the plaza, where a couple of scribes are sitting on woven mats with leaf-wrapped tamales, steaming and fragrant. One of them hands you one wordlessly. It's full of spicy squash and roasted insects, delicious in that don't ask, just eat way. You sit, grateful. As you chew, the conversation drifts. One scribe complains about the ink quality. Another rants about how the new scribe school kids don't respect glyph order. Then someone brings up the topic you knew would come, zero. Why do we even need it? One of them asks, wiping chili from his chin. We already have nothing as a concept. Yes, you reply, but zero's not just nothing. It's a placeholder. It lets you measure the space between some things. The others look dubious. You're romanticizing it again, the youngest says. You grin. Maybe. But without zero, how do you distinguish 20 from 200? By counting slower, someone mutters. Still, the debate goes on. Philosophers have argued over this for decades. Some think zero is a gift from the gods. Others think it's mathematical heresy. The scholarly community, such as it is, remains divided. Personally, you like zero. It feels honest. As the sun dips slightly toward the west and the tamales vanish, you rise with a stretch. There's still much to be done before the day ends. And somewhere, in the cool shadows of the temple chambers, the universe's next puzzle is already waiting for you. The path to the observatory is quiet, eerily so. After the clamor of the markets and the spice-laced noise of lunchtime chatter, the jungle hush feels thick, like walking into a temple where the air itself has secrets to keep. Ferns lean in conspiratorially. A bird calls once, then seems to think better of it. You climb a steep set of stone steps, one hand steadying yourself against the smooth, time-worn limestone. This place isn't open to just anyone. The skywatchers guard their knowledge as carefully as priests guard relics. But you've earned your place. Numbers, after all, are the gods' favorite language besides maybe blood and maize. The observatory rises like a squat tower, its upper levels open to the wind. Up here, the world feels bigger and quieter. The treetops spread out like an endless green sea, interrupted only by distant pyramids, clouds, and the occasional annoyed monkey. A skywatcher greets you with a nod, then gestures toward the carved platform where calculations are made. You walk over, past a shell-shaped basin used to reflect the moon, and take your place by a row of counting stones laid out with painful precision. Today's task is deceptively simple: verify the alignment of the Venus cycle against the current baton count. Venus, that celestial diva, is a planet with opinions, especially when it comes to timing. She disappears for days at a time, then reappears dramatically just before something big happens. Or so the stories go. You place your fingers on the stones and start to count. 1 dot, 2 dots, 1 bar. 20, 40, 60. Add 5. Convert. Realign. There's a rhythm to it, like weaving or drumming. You drift into the math, eyes tracing glyphs that chart the last Venus appearance, calculating whether the next one falls before the festival of stinging rain or after. The result comes out, odd. A day off. Maybe 2. You frown, retrace, double check. It still doesn't match the projections from the temple archives. Could be a calendar shift, one of the skywatchers mutters. Or someone carved the wrong ton in the inscription, you say, half to yourself. Scholars have long debated the accuracy of those stone-carved records. Were the old astronomers infallible, or just really good at pretending to be? No one wants to admit the possibility that a 1,000-year-old glyph might just contain a very confident error. You log the discrepancy carefully. It'll need to be debated, cross-referenced, probably argued over by several elders with different colored robes. For now, you make a personal note: don't schedule any major ceremonies until the planet cooperates. After the calculations, you're invited to stay for the tea ritual, less mystical than it sounds, and more of an excuse to drink something warm and mildly hallucinogenic. The tea is thick, frothy, made from cacao, pepper, and crushed flowers that smell faintly of cinnamon and memory. As you sip, the wind stirs the treetops. The sky turns a deeper blue, hinting at the approaching hush of dusk. One of the younger astronomers pulls out a bark paper riddle and reads aloud, "What is always moving but never arrives?" You raise an eyebrow. "A tax caravan." He groans. "Time." "Same thing," you reply. Laughter, soft and tired, floats around the circle. You talk a while longer about patterns in eclipses, the curious way birds sometimes fly in spirals before a dry season, and whether the twin pyramids to the east really mirror the twin gods or just look good in profile. No one agrees. That's part of the charm. As the shadows lengthen, you make your way down the observatory steps, the jungle air now cooler and humming with life. You pass by the sacred cenote, its surface glassy in the low light, reflecting orange clouds and the first shy stars. At its edge, you pause. People say the cenote speaks whispers from beneath the surface. You listen, but all you hear is the sound of dripping water and your own breath. Still, you kneel, toss in 3 small stones, each inscribed with a glyph of intention, clarity, accuracy, calm. A mathematician's prayer. Not as flashy as a warrior's, but arguably more important when you're trying to keep entire city calendars aligned with the heavens. You wander toward the archives next, a shaded building just off the main plaza. Inside, the walls are lined with rolled bark scrolls, sorted by region, dynasty, and the whims of scribes with strong opinions about shelf placement. You're here for one thing, a record of tribute patterns from 3 generations ago. There's a strange irregularity in this year's maize collection: too much in the west, too little in the south. You suspect a migratory trend or a temple tax misalignment, but you need evidence. You pull the scroll, blow off a decade's worth of dust, and start scanning the glyphs by torchlight. Your eyes adjust. Your mind runs the calculations backward. Patterns emerge: small, steady shifts in volume and timing. Could be drought, but the rainfall glyphs don't support that theory. Pestilence, maybe. But no sign of ceremonial illness markers. Could just be population flux. As your finger trails down the column, you pause. One glyph stands out. It's familiar, but slightly off. Like someone tried to mimic the sign for temporary variance but twisted a loop the wrong way. You sit back, tea still buzzing faintly in your brain. Forgery. Or maybe just a lazy scribe who copied the wrong glyph template. Either way, it casts doubt on the rest of the records from that year. You sigh. More recalculations tomorrow. You leave the archives just as the last light fades. Bats flutter overhead, darting after invisible snacks. Somewhere, a drum beat starts slow, low, more heartbeat than music. A temple ritual beginning. You make a mental note to update the lunar markers in the temple's schedule next week. They're drifting out of sync. As you head home, past the flickering torches and the fireflies competing with them, you think about how people will remember this cycle. Will they know who caught the tribute error? Who fixed the Venus calendar? Probably not. That's the way of things. But still, the numbers will be right. The stars will rise on time. And somewhere, in some future century, another mathematician will look at your glyphs and silently nod. Your door creaks softly as you step back into your home, a low stone dwelling with walls painted in faded ochre and cobalt patterns, glyphs of maize, moon, and memory. The air inside is cool and quiet, like an old thought. You slip off your outer cloak and hang it on the wooden peg carved with your family's sign, 3 dots above a coiled snake. A name few remember, but numbers always remember you. The evening meal has already been laid out, warmed stones keeping the maize cake soft and the beans pleasantly smoky. You sit cross-legged, tearing a piece of tamale with one hand while thumbing a smooth counting stone in the other, a habit you haven't shaken since apprenticeship. Across from you, your younger cousin is trying to build a miniature step pyramid from folded palm fronds. Shouldn't you be studying glyphs? You ask. I am, they reply without looking up. These are symbolic representations of knowledge, obviously. You narrow your eyes. Is that what the elders told you? No. But it's what I'll tell them if they ask. You can't argue with that logic. You used to say the stars whispered equations to you when you wanted to stay up late. Nobody believed you, but nobody could prove it either. After dinner, you gather your tools, a fresh bark sheet, your favorite jade stylus, a pouch of pigment, and a small bowl of crushed moth wings mixed with gum resin. This particular ink sparkles faintly when dry, a subtle flex among scribes. Tonight's work: update the city's water flow record using the new rainfall figures from the Western Aqueduct. Not glamorous, but essential. If the math is off, entire neighborhoods get flooded or forgotten. You sit at your writing table, light a chunk of copal resin, and inhale the soft, sweet smoke. It sharpens your focus. Or at least, that's what the elders always claimed. Personally, you think it just smells nice and hides the scent of damp parchment. You begin drawing the glyph slowly. 1 bar, 4.19. The rainfall was heavier than expected. You add another symbol, indicating temporary redirection of channels. Then you stop. Something doesn't sit right. A sudden thought prickles at the edge of your mind. You glance at your stone tablet from earlier. The Venus anomaly. The tribute error. And now this water flowing too soon, or too much. Could they be linked? You pull out another sheet, this one marked with the moon cycles. Flip to last month. There was an eclipse, wasn't there? Faint, almost imperceptible, but noted by the northern outposts. The kind that spooks birds and farmers alike. You start charting the anomalies, tribute shifts, rainfall changes, Venus misalignment. You trace connections with your stylus, drawing gentle arcs between numbers. It's not exact. It's not even confirmed. But you feel it in your bones, a pattern is forming. And it's not just celestial. It's human. You rub your temples, then chuckle softly. You always do this, turn a few strange coincidences into a cosmic drama. You once blamed a failed harvest on Mercury's mood. The high priest still hasn't let that go. But just in case, you roll up the scroll and slip it into a clay tube labeled speculative theories, unconfirmed. You have a whole shelf of them. You call it your shelf of possible futures. Outside, the moon rises high, bright enough to cast shadows on the walls. You walk out to your small garden, where a few sacred herbs grow, copal blossom, dream leaf, something your grandmother once claimed was good for summoning owl spirits but mostly just makes tea taste funny. You sit on the low stone bench, listening to the distant rhythm of a festival drum. Tonight is the night of reeds, a minor celebration, but an excuse for young lovers to braid each other's hair and old mathematicians to pretend they know how to dance. You're not going this year. Too tired. Too many glyphs. But you remember your first night of reeds. You wore a tunic too large and spilled pumpkin beer on your ceremonial sandals. Your date laughed so hard she snorted cacao through her nose. You married someone else eventually, but you still remember that night every time the reeds sway just so in the moonlight. As you gaze up, the stars seem unusually clear. You trace their familiar patterns, the turtle, the jaguar, the cross sticks. Each constellation has a story. You prefer the ones with endings that don't quite make sense. A soft hoot echoes from a nearby tree. Not an owl, probably just a sleepy bird confused by moonlight. But you nod respectfully anyway, just in case the spirits are listening. You return inside to finish your glyphs. The night grows quieter, heavier, like a deep breath being held by the jungle. You light a small oil lamp, more for company than necessity, and begin the final calculations for the city's weekly cycle. The Akin, the keepers of the sun, rely on your work to time the prayers and offerings. No pressure. A mistake means someone fasts too long, or forgets to sacrifice a turkey on the proper day. And turkeys, as you well know, hold grudges. You pause, recalling an old tale from your teacher how one king once skipped the day of mud cakes and was haunted for years by a particularly vindictive tapir spirit. Probably nonsense. Still, better safe than cursed. You finish the glyphs, blow gently on the ink until it dries, then seal the scroll with a small knot of red string. Your cousin has fallen asleep in a corner, still clutching a misshapen palm pyramid. You cover them with a cotton blanket and whisper a blessing for clever laziness. As you prepare for bed, you glance once more at the speculative theories shelf. The clay tubes sit quietly, unbothered by your indecision. You wonder if, 100 years from now, someone will open them and think you were a genius. or deeply confused. Either would be fine. You lie down on your woven mat, pull the mosquito net gently around your body, and listen to the soft hum of night insects outside. Numbers flit through your mind like fireflies. Some settle, some drift away. Just before sleep, you remember something from your teacher again, a whisper, "Really?" The gods love precision, but they laugh at certainty. And with that, your dreams begin. Morning doesn't exactly wake you up, it just arrives more brightly than before. Your eyelids flutter open to the familiar green-gold glow of light filtered through woven mats and hanging maize strings. A parrot somewhere nearby is doing its usual imitation of your cousin's laughter, which is both uncanny and unsettling before breakfast. You sit up slowly, stretching your legs out from under the woven cotton sheet. Your back pops once, then again, in a satisfying reminder that numbers may never age, but the people who work with them certainly do. As your feet touch the cool floor, you hear the soft patter of feet, your cousin again, this time mumbling a prayer to the maize god while chewing on a stick of sweet sap. You shuffle to the hearth and light a small fire, more out of ritual than necessity. While the coals catch, you sip on a bitter tea made from crushed bark and cacao shells. Not your favorite, but good for clarity. Probably. Or at least it keeps your cousin from stealing your breakfast. Today is the day of measurement, when all city officials are required to report their tallies, census updates, food reserves, rainfall logs, temple donations, and, yes, the number of ornamental iguanas gifted to the high priest by competing city-states. You once argued that iguanas should be tracked in liveliness units, but no one appreciated the joke except for one very offended iguana. You wrap your official shawl over your shoulder, tucking your stylus behind your ear. A moment later, you double back to grab the scroll from last night, the rainfall calculations. Can't forget those. The Westgate Canal overflowed last time due to a miscalculated lunar phase, and the Potters still won't speak to you. As you step outside, a crowd is already forming in the plaza. Scribes, merchants, and a few disoriented goats all bustle around the wide stone square. At the far end, beneath a wooden canopy, the record keepers have set up their shaded desks. You find your place, take a seat, and begin the ceremonial unrolling of your scroll. Across from you, the local bean counter, a man with a perpetually surprised expression, gives you a nod and a leaf fan made of dried feathers. It's a small courtesy, and also a subtle hint. Apparently, your hair is doing something majestic today. You begin your recitation aloud, as custom demands. For every line, the lead recorder echoes you, then nods gravely, then scratches the glyph into a massive ledger so large it needs its own shade structure. One line in particular, a 9. Rainfall increase over 3 nights, elicits a pause. He clears his throat. Would you consider that anomalous? You shrug. Only if Venus disagrees. He nods sagely, as if you've just confirmed a hidden truth. You don't have the heart to tell him that you made that phrase up just now. The counting continues for over an hour. You alternate between cool sips of hibiscus water and warm calculations on bark parchment. Occasionally, someone yells out an incorrect figure and is promptly pelted with tamale husks. Light-hearted civic shaming, an underrated motivator. By midday, the reports are done. You're free to go, but your mind won't settle. That rainfall discrepancy still bothers you. As does the tribute miscount. And, let's be honest, the fact that someone accidentally logged 3 frogs and a wedding spoon under temple donations. So instead of heading home, you walk toward the astronomer's platform near the edge of the city, a tall stone structure with carved notches marking the seasons. A pair of young apprentices greet you, their faces smudged with charcoal from last night's eclipse rituals. You show them your scroll. They frown. "We've noticed something too," one whispers. "Venus rose 2 beats early last week." You raise your brows. "Beats?" "Yes. Not seconds. Beats." The birds hesitated. "That's wildly unscientific. But fascinating." You trade a few more theories, some plausible, others delightfully absurd. You all agree that if a real pattern emerges, it should be called the tepakel effect. Tepakel, meaning stirring wind, is also what your nickname was during training, due to your ability to throw others off with random trivia during exams. A fact you choose not to remind them of. Evening falls again. Back at your home, you prepare a final report for tomorrow's ceremony, a small gathering of scribes where theoretical scrolls are exchanged like gossip. It's not official policy, but it's more fun than trying to match census data to actual heads. Tonight's scroll is titled "Convergence Patterns Between Rainfall Cycles and Venus Phases, a Friendly Warning." You're not predicting doom. Just a particularly soggy harvest season if the moons continue being dramatic. As the scroll dries, you take out your oldest bark sheet, the one with your very first calculation, a sloppy list of turtle hatchings and corn growth ratios. You keep it in a sealed box, mostly to remind yourself how far you've come. The numbers were wrong, but the curiosity was solid. You glance again at your speculative scroll shelf. Some are full. Some are blank. All are waiting. You light one more chunk of copal, trace a spiral in the ash with your finger, and lie back on your mat. You can hear the city humming through the earth, the sounds of drying pots, distant flutes, a child laughing at something a parrot said. You wonder if anyone in the future will remember you. Probably not. But maybe they'll remember the numbers. The stars blink above, indifferent but consistent. You smile, close your eyes, and drift gently into dreams of shifting glyphs and whispering constellations. And now, with the candle of the day flickering low, your world slows into softness. The counting stones are quiet now, tucked neatly in their pouch, their cool surfaces smooth against your memory. The scrolls have been sealed, the ink dried to a hushed permanence. Nothing more to correct, nothing else to calculate, not tonight. The jungle beyond your home murmurs softly, leaves rustling like old paper in a breeze. Somewhere, a flute plays a lullaby only half remembered. You can still smell the trace of copal smoke, mingling with the warm scent of maize, of the tea you forgot to finish, and the faintest whisper of rain in the far-off hills. Your muscles rest against the woven mat, grounded, supported, held. Thoughts move slowly now, as if walking through syrup. Equations unravel into dreams, and glyphs lose their sharpness, becoming gentle curves floating across the night sky. There is nothing urgent here. No drought to forecast, no tribute to tally, no eclipse to decode. Just the soft ticking of time, not measured but felt, like the echo of a calm heartbeat. And perhaps, somewhere in your dreams, a future student finds your shelf of speculative scrolls. Smiles. Turns a page. And wonders who you were. But that's for another night. For now, let your breath deepen, your limbs grow heavy, and the shadows wrap around you like a cotton shawl. You have done enough. You are enough. Sleep well, dear scribe. End story here. Sweet dreams.